I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. You know, one of the big questions we always get from everybody is what's going to happen? What's going to happen with gold? What's going to happen with the economy? What's going to happen with war? And it's only fitting to have on the publisher of the Trends Journal back to give us what he thinks is going to happen in 2015. I'm talking about Gerald Celente, coming to us from upstate New York. Gerald Celente, thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Thank you, and Happy New Year, almost.
Happy New Year, almost. You have your 2015 Trends Journal, and we're just going to skim the surface of this. I just got, three or four bullet points I want to get to. People just have to either, buy the Trends Journal, or there's a conference they can buy. We'll put up a link at the end of this. But I just want to kind of hit some bullet points here and get your trend, your forecast for 2015. Manipulation is, at the top of your list. And Chris Powell from GATA was on saying, hey, the CME group lists in their 10K that they're giving volume discounts to central banks. So if that doesn't mean there's manipulation, I don't know what does. What's your trend for 2015 concerning manipulation of the markets?
Well, it's the grand manipulation of the markets, of the news. And it just keeps spreading. As a matter of fact, that article is being written by Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, who I know is on your show as well. And he also points out the manipulation in the gold markets. And then we know of the manipulation, we're not making this up, in the Forex. What are we talking about? $5.3 trillion a day? The markets are rigged. We heard people like that guy Kramer coming out and saying stock markets are rigged. He did it on one of those shows. We know that the LIBOR rate is rigged. That's the interest rate. We're not making this up. It's not a conspiracy theory. Banks have been fined for, quote, their misdeeds. Their misdeeds. They're rigging the show and no heads roll. The whole market, the news, the information, it's one rigged game. In our business, trend forecasting, it's based on the understanding that current events form future trends. So we take the information that we have and we analyze it and see how it's going to play out and what the implications will be. It's becoming more and more difficult because we're getting phony information continually. So whether it has to do with geopolitics, economics, whatever it is, they're cooking the books and spinning lies. So it's harder and harder to see where some of these things are going. I'll give you a manipulation. How's this one for you? Let's rig not only the interest rates from the LIBOR, let's keep interest rates low. Since 2006, we're not going to raise them. You can't make that up. They have not raised interest rates in the United States. The Federal Reserve has manipulated the interest rates since 2006, which ties into, see, when you're forecasting trends also, all things are connected. So when we're looking at the grand manipulation, we're looking at bankism. This isn't capitalism anymore. If you have capitalism has failed capitalism, it's not capitalism. The merger of state and corporate powers is called fascism, and when you look at the rigging of the game, it's bankism. If anybody has a doubt in their mind, I could clear that doubt up with 4 simple words: too big to fail. And the too big to fails don't happen in a capitalist economy, only in a bankism manipulated economy. For example, look at that stock market last week, huh? Wasn't that great?
18,000.
18,000. Hey, how come? Oh, go back a week and a half before that. You remember the Federal Reserve chairwoman came out and said, be patient with interest rates. A new word, patient. Patient, they're patients that should be put in an insane asylum for what they're doing. So when they came out with that phony word, from the stock markets going down, some 800 points in a few days, all of a sudden they shot up to new highs. Why? The grand manipulation and bankism. It's there for everyone to watch. I got one better for you. Here we are, the last few days of the year. You watch what happens with bankism over there in ECB land. That's right, European Central Bank. They will start next year not only buying worthless government bonds, they're going to start buying corporate bonds as well.
Oh.
They'll do anything to keep this Ponzi scheme going. So when you put it together, you can see it's a bank set-up system. Look what they did over in Japan. You want to talk about bankism? I got one for you. How do you say quantitative easing in Japanese? Well, call it Abenomics. Yeah, but it failed the first time out. Their third quarter GDP dropped, what, over 7%? I got it. Forget about it. We're going to do it again, and we'll double it up on it. So we're going to do the equivalent of if the Federal Reserve in the United States, comparative to GDP, pumped in $3 trillion next year. So it's bankism. It's bankism in China. They're doing the same thing. The Chinese housing markets collapsed. You saw prices go up in 2013, almost 30%. According to, quote, the official numbers coming out now, they're down 10%. You want to see bankism? You want to see why the markets went up and the grand manipulation? How about merger and acquisition activity? It's back at 2007 levels because they're borrowing money for nothing and doing deals. Same thing with the stock buybacks. They're borrowing money for nothing and buying back their stocks and propping up the equity markets.
So the trend, bankism continues, manipulation continues, and then what's your forecast for quantitative easing? You know, the Federal Reserve said, "Woof, we're done. Economy's great. Unemployment's coming back. Going down. Employment's going up. The GDP is at 4 or 5%. We're just doing fantastic." So I guess no more quantitative easing.
Well, again, look what they had to do to juice the markets as they were going down in early December. They came out with this new word, patient. Be patient with interest rates. They have to keep these interest rates low. Look what's going on over in Europe. They keep degrading economic growth. And now, again, you tie all these together because one of the other trends we have is about war. And you look what's going on with the sanctions against Russia. What imbecile put this into play? What stupid jerk in foreign policy came up with this one? I got an idea. Let's put sanctions on Russia because most of the business that they do is with Europe. And Europe is already showing signs of going back into recession, as they are in Italy. Oh, you saw what happened to the Greek stock market. Look what's going on in Spain. Hey, how about Germany? The Bundesbank just degraded it. So now we're going to put sanctions on Russia. Russia's going to put sanctions on Europe, and trade that's already slowed down, we'll slow it down some more. We'll make it really hard. And I got a better one for you. Let's really shaft the people too, because we'll put sanctions on tourism so they can really suffer over there in Crimea. And you know what that'll do, Greg? That'll have Putin shaking in his boots. That's how stupid these people are. So what they're doing is they're hurting the global economy at a time when it's already slowing down.
So are they going to have another round of QE in 2015, or is the whole thing going to crash and blow up? What's your trend on that?
Well, it's hard to say what they're going to do, but they're going to manipulate it in some way. Again, they couldn't raise interest rates. They had to make a backdoor promise that they're going to keep them at record lows. Look what's going on with the economy. Look what happened in the beginning of December. You saw the markets unfolding until they started saying they were going to keep interest rates low. How come the Dow is at 18,000? Is it on the good news that just came out last week that existing housing sales were down 6.1%? And that's with record low interest rates and mortgages, 30-year mortgages, way, way down. Hey, how about those wonderful, durable good orders? Oh, they were down only 0.7% when they were expecting a 3% increase. Yes, they're going to come up with some other scam. They'll manipulate it in some way. This thing should have collapsed a long time ago, but they keep making up new rules and a new game. What will they call it? Who ever heard of quantitative easing before? They'll make up a new name, deal a new deck of cards, and set a new house rule, and they'll keep playing the Ponzi scheme until some point you can't get enough players to keep the old people happy. By paying them off, you're not getting enough new people in. That's all a confidence game is, and this is nothing more than a central bank confidence game. And it goes again, tie it all back to bankism.
So do you think that 2015, it might fall out a bit? Do you think people may lose confidence if they have some kind of QE and they figure out that they're never going to, that the cold hard truth is they can't raise rates and they're going to keep printing money? Is that when the confidence goes poof? And does it happen in 2015?
It's hard to say, because as long as the casino keeps shoving money in for the players to keep doing their deals, then you have the markets continue to rise. Again, what are the two fundamentals behind the global equity market rise? Mergers and acquisitions, again, at 2007 highs, and companies buying back their stock with cheap money. So as long as the cheap money game continues to go and there isn't something to whack it out, and it could, by the way, it could happen with the ruble. It could happen with the rupee. It could happen with the rupiah. It could happen with the riyal. It could happen with any of these currencies in these emerging markets or energy-dependent markets that start to decline. So all it does is take a shock wave to end the game. So you don't know where it's going to come from, but the stage is being set for the shock wave. Look, with these record low oil prices, what are they talking about? Oh, it's going to boost consumer spending. Not according to the government data in this country. At the levels they are now, let's say $55 a barrel for West Texas, we're talking about a family saving the grand total of between $550 to $600 a year. Now, what's that going to do to the economies of Texas, up to North Dakota, and other states where they have made a lot of growth in employment because of hydrofracking? What is it going to do to the junk bond market, where an estimated 20% of the junk bonds in the United States are energy related, and the trillions of dollars around the world in other energy related junk bonds and investment deals? So what I'm saying is, on one end, they could keep the interest rates low. On another end, they could even invent another quantitative easing scheme. But on the bigger end, you have volatility in the world commodity markets and geopolitics that could end the scam in a second.
I got to give you credit. Last time you were on a few months ago, I think oil was around $80 a barrel or so, and you're talking about the supply. The supply is not contracting, but the demand is sure contracting. You were just saying it's going straight down. Look at it on a chart. I mean, oil is the demand for oil is going down. Now, part of this may be to punish Putin in Russia. Saudi Arabia says they don't care if it goes down to $20 or $40 a barrel. That sounds kind of crazy if you're going to pump the only asset you have in your country out of the ground at cheaper and cheaper rates. But that said, you got to take a victory lap on that one. You said the trend is energy is going to go down in terms of oil, in terms of its price, because demand is going down, and the economy is going to go right down with it. You said that. Right, but not your exact quote, but you said that. So my question is, how long can this go on? How long can they play this game?
Well, again, and what we were saying also, it's not only oil. I mean, now you have natural gas at 2-year lows. You have copper at 5-year lows. You have corn at 5-year lows. You can buy a ton of reinforcement rod, rebar, in China cheaper than you could buy a ton of cabbage. It's commodities around the world. It's oversupply and slowing demand. I've said this from the beginning. If the Americans and the Europeans don't buy stuff, China doesn't make it, nor does Indonesia, Vietnam, and these other cheap labor countries. If they're not making stuff, Canada, Australia, Brazil, Chile, all of these rich natural resource countries aren't selling their stuff overseas. You look, it's not only the ruble that's taking a hit. You go up to Canada, the looney's getting knocked back. You go to Brazil, the real, all these emerging markets besides those are also taking a hit. So here's where all the pieces keep adding up into a very serious economic and geopolitical game changer for 2015. For example, you mentioned Saudi Arabia. What else do they sell other than oil? Yeah, I know that they have about $500 billion worth of currency that they're holding on to. But guess what? When the Arab Spring broke out, the way they cooled it out was dumping a lot of money into the society to keep the people quiet. Same thing in Qatar. Same thing in Bahrain. Same thing in United Arab Emirates. And again, look at Venezuela. They need oil at $115 a barrel to balance their budget. 45% of Russia's GDP is energy related. They need it at around $100 a barrel. What you're going to start seeing, and then again, go to the other commodity rich nations, whether they're Congo, Angola, whether it's copper, whether it's whatever they're exporting that they're rich in, they're going to be facing very, very severe social problems. You know one of my sayings, when people lose everything and have nothing left to lose, they lose it. And they're starting to lose it. But again, going back to the grand manipulation, you know why this unrest is going on out there? It's easy. Terrorists, militants, ISIS. Yeah, okay, great, gotcha. It's not a declining economy. No, it's all about ideology. It's all about money and how much you don't have and what future you don't have in front of you. And that's starting to happen in countries south of the border in Mexico way.
Which brings me to one of my final points here, and that is your famous saying. I have people say this to me all the time. I see it written to me in emails. It's on my usawatchdog.com channel, website. It's on the usawatchdog.com website, the YouTube channel. And they quote you all the time, when all else fails, they take you to war. And let me tell you, this is one of your best trend forecast. You just have weaved it all together in a beautiful tapestry that gets us to when all else fails, that they take you to war. And this is one of your trend forecasts for 2015. Chuck Hagel, the outgoing defense secretary, is supposedly making lots of noise and plans to retake Mosul in western Iraq. And so what was no boots on the ground is going to be lots of boots on the ground. They're going to be U.S. boots. Tell me about your war trend for 2015.
Look what President Obama said back in August. We're going into Iraq. No, I said the war ended. We're going back for humanitarian mission to save them Yazidis on the mountain. Yeah, like everybody knows what a Yazidi is. Oh, they're an ancient tribe, and ISIS is going to wipe them out. Boom, like that. Hey, Greg. At this time, about 1,400 airstrikes already. Getting them ISISes. Hey, Greg, over $1 billion already spent on the new ISIS war. Oh, we're also bombing Syria, aren't we? Oh, well, the president got congressional approval, and, Oh, the war. Nah, he didn't even ask anybody. It's so easy to go to war. Look what just happened with this North Korea incident. You go on the internet and you go to the blogs where people are very attuned to cyber wars, and they're saying there's no evidence of this at all. But look how easy it is to hate another country. I got one for you. Probably never heard this one before. Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction and ties to Al Qaeda. And I got proof here. Yeah, I'll show you. It's in this little vial, and I'll play Colin Powell. I'm saying to you, it's so easy to take the people to war, and propaganda. By the way, if anyone wants to get into a business very cheaply that brings great results, and you could be really stupid about it, propaganda is the business for you. Because that's what they are selling us. Look how they have twisted the whole Ukrainian crisis. They've made it seem as though Russia is behind all of this destabilization, failing to look at the other facts. Just a year ago, anybody could Google it up, Victoria Nuland, Assistant Secretary of State at the Washington Press Club, December 13th, 2013, brought to you by over one shoulder Chevron, the other shoulder Exxon, saying that the path for Ukraine is with Europe and that they should follow the path set forth by the International Monetary Fund. There is the audio tape of her and our ambassador to Ukraine, Jeffrey Pyatt, that they tapped into, talking about the overthrow of the Yanukovych government and how they're going to put, quote, Yats in there, Yatsenyuk, who they put in as. So what I'm saying to you is that their hatred is very easy to build between and among nations. So I believe that as these economic house of cards continue to collapse, they will get the people's mind off it like that by getting us into more war. As I say, when all else fails, they take you to war because you can see the path. Go back to the crash of 1929. Recession, depression, currency war, trade war, world war. Sound familiar?
Well, right now, we're in the probably the trade war portion of the arc, which only leaves real war, coming up. And one last thing, it's kind of self-serving. One of your trends was selfie journalism. And, you don't have to wait for CNBC or Fox or MSNBC to legitimize you by having you on. You have your own studio. I think that's smart. You have your own broadcast. I think that's great. You come on and, talk to us. You'll get, 80, 90, 100,000 views right here on my little USA Watchdog, enterprise. And tell me about the trend for journalism.
Our CEO, his name is Gerald Celente. He used to be, among other things, the editor-in-chief of Gannett News Service. This is a man, Mr. Inside, in the business over 30 years, real pro. He'll tell you what's going on. As a matter of fact, we just had a conference here. We launched our top trends for 2015, 5.5-hour conference. He does a whole segment on selfie journalism. And it's available to anyone that wants to purchase. They could go to you have a link there.
I'll link to it at the end.
This is a man on the inside. There are no feet on the beat. When you look at what's happened in the newspaper and broadcast business, and you were in it before, all they're doing is consolidating. They're interested in the bottom line. I talked before, again, Greg, all things are connected. We talked about why the markets are going up. I said one of the reasons are the mergers and acquisitions. That's what's also happened to the newspaper industry and, of course, the communications business. What are they interested in these M&As? They're interested in the bottom line. They're cutting out copy desks. They're not following stories. What used to happen is that a story would emanate from a community, they cover it heavily, and then it would be picked up by the wire services and it would build. Those days are gone. They don't have, they used to have bureaus in Washington from Omaha newspaper. Those don't exist anymore. Selfie journalism is, we now have the wherewithal to do it on our own without them. They are confined and constricted by the bottom line.
And let me
now you're seeing the growth of shows like yours and other independent broadcasts, because all they're doing is they're on the one big page. They're not doing anything out on the ends, and all they are doing is repeating the government lines that are fed to them.
I tell you, I was out for lunch. I'll end with this last week, and I watched the whole time. They were doing a show. Maybe they were doing the best viral videos or whatever, to be fair. But they're doing a show about what's on the internet. Do they not understand they're hammering nails into their own coffin? That's what I was thinking. You're telling me what's on the internet? You're dead. You ought to be making the news, not telling me what's on the internet.
And then you want to talk about what you just said about them talking about the internet. You want to see something really stupid? I got one for you. I remember when it happened back in the mid-90s, when newspapers started putting up their content for free. How about that for destroying yourself? So yeah, then you saw what happened to newspapers. Newspapers in the early 90s were flourishing, but they gave it away for free. So what we're saying is, when you're looking at the merger and acquisition, the consolidation, listen, the numbers that you just said about your show and people watching, for instance, a broadcast like this is almost now as big as they get on MSNBC.
Yes.
Yeah, people aren't watching this dribble anymore.
That's right.
It's the same old tired faces punching out the same old party lines.
Gerald Celente, this is probably one of your best interviews, one of your best tapestries of weaving together all the players, all the data, all the economy, geopolitical. Thank you so much for giving us your 2015, or at least a shortened version of your 2015 trends. We really appreciate you coming on USA Watchdog. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, and Happy New Year to you and everyone watching and listening.